Okay, it's 2 p.m. exactly. So welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Fatima Mohi Eldin. I'm an editor at Choice and the editor of Toward Inclusive Excellence. On behalf of Choice, Toward Inclusive Excellence, and LibTech Insights, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, When AI Comes Knocking, a decision framework for archival collections. Today's session is a joint presentation from LibTech Insights, the library technology content vertical from Choice, and Toward Inclusive Excellence, Choice's content strand that explores issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion within and outside of the higher academic education community. My colleague Daniel and I will talk briefly about each in a minute. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a few features of the webinar software. All the attendees who join the presentation are automatically muted and your cameras are off, so don't worry about generating noise or feedback. We've got that taken care of for you. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. To adjust the size of the shared screen or video, you can use the divider in the middle of the screen to slide the sizes to your liking. We are using the chat and Q&A features today, so please submit comments in the chat and all questions in the Q&A box. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation, so please type your questions into the Q&A module as they occur to you. You can also use the upvote feature to highlight questions you would like to be addressed. Also, there is closed captioning available for today's session. To toggle the automated captions on or off, please use the Show Captions button on the bottom panel of your screen. You can also turn on automated translation for the captions by clicking the arrow button, toggling on translation, and selecting your preferred language. Please note that we are recording today's program, and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording in today's slides. So before we jump into the presentation, I'd like to first tell you a little bit about TIE. TIE, or Toward Inclusive Excellence, is a content strand from Choice that explores issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility in and outside of the higher education community. We publish weekly blog posts, interviews, resource lists, and more. And if you would like to receive updates about new blog posts, webinars, and resource lists, please use the links in the chat to sign up for our newsletter and to read the TIE blog. So now I'd like to turn it over to LibTech Insights editor, Daniel, who will talk about LTI.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Pfeiffer, the editor of LibTech Insights, or LTI. LibTech Insights is a content vertical from Choice that examines the day-to-day impact of library and education technology on academic librarians, researchers, and students. The channel provides practical guidance on technology trends and products, all of which are written by and for librarians. You can find out more about LTI and read the blog via the links in the chat. We send out one email a week with all of our recent posts, as well as a couple of news stories, so I highly encourage you to sign up. It takes just a minute, and you can subscribe to TIE at the same time. All right, now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Leo Lowe leads the University of Virginia Libraries as University Librarian and Dean, and serves as Special Advisor to the Provost on AI literacy. He founded UVA's AI Literacy and Action Lab and authored the UVA Archival AI Protocol. His clear framework for AI prompting has been featured in over 200 LibGuides across academic libraries worldwide, and his AI literacy framework has been adopted and adapted at multiple universities and libraries. As ACRL president, he led the development of the ACRL AI competencies for library workers. His current research investigates the AI answer economy, how AI systems reshape the way people find, evaluate, and trust information. His writing appears in the Journal of Academic Librarianship, College and Research Libraries, The Guardian, and The Conversation. He holds an EED from University of Pennsylvania and a postgraduate diploma in AI from Oxford University. Leo, please take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Daniel. And hello, everyone. If you give me a second, let me share my slides. Okay. So it's great to see so many people from different parts of the world. If you just joined, please share your name and where you're from in the chat. I love seeing those. So today we're going to talk about a decision framework when we get approached by AI companies or vendors, which is something that's happening right now. So I would love to share what we have thought of, how we have thought about it, and how we want to move forward. So in the next 40 to 45 minutes, my goal is to leave you with three things. One is the reframe, how to distinguish disposition decisions from access decisions, and why that distinction really determines a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. Second is the method, a step-by-step way to classify AI-related requests, from vendor contract clauses to direct training partnerships. And then thirdly, community, how the statement of shared practice, which is something I will explain what that is, turns individual decisions into collective action, and how your institution can be part of that. Now, before we begin, I want to ask you a question first. Can you select one of the choices in the poll, which best describes your role, wherever you are, which institutions you are at? Special collections archives, or department head administration, or reference instruction, or user services, or other. Done plenty of others there too. So please take a second and select your choice. Okay, thank you, Sabrina. So I see, almost half of you are in Special Collections Archives. It's perfect for this um, webinar, and also other, people in other departments or units as well. So thank you for sharing that. This is important to me to know who I'm talking with, and hopefully, I'll see answers, probably, more questions from different parts of the libraries. All right. So the first section is the shift, how the landscape has changed. You probably have noticed people, or how Google has been presented to you. People are really stop searching now, and people are just asking questions, and which is really a important shift in how the information, in a way, quote unquote, business has changed. What I mean by that is, last year, in September, so it's not even a year ago, but it seems like a lifetime away. OpenAI published a paper on how their users have been using ChatGPT. At that time, there were about 700 or 800 million users, a lot already, and now I think there are more. And they share the top users of ChatGPT by their users. It's quite interesting, because if you look at the top 3 users, which account for nearly 80% of all the conversations, the top one is practical guidance, which is asking AI to teach you something, right? If I ask it to show me how to use my washing machine, or what are these settings for, that's practical guidance. Or students asking AI to teach them certain subjects, or help them understand some certain things. So in a way, with 800 plus million users, that's basically the largest learning platform ever. But number 2 is really relevant to us, people in libraries or archives in this kind of line of work, is that the people are using AI to seek information. You can basically, use these AI models because they can do web searches too, to look up information. And instead of saying, searching through us clicking on links to look up information, now you get an answer. In the introduction that Daniel gave, he talked about, I'm basically spending a lot of time on this shift, how this information seeking behaviors change from us going, getting a list of links to look up information, evaluate information, to us getting an answer. If you use Google, now you probably get a AI overview at the very top before you even see links to different resources. And gradually, that will become just the norm, whether it's just normal searching or in the academic field where people actually try to find do research, and that's a important shift for us to think about how our work will evolve and how we can help our users get to the information that they need. In fact, so information literacy will have to adapt along with it. So, like I said, the old model is a search. The users type in a search term or a question. You get a bunch of links, and then you get values from or the values derived from the search engine giving you a lot of resources. But the new model is you type in a question, you get an answer, but some things have answers, like factual questions, you may get a factual answer, but most other answers are not, most other questions may not have answers. You may get a interpretation. So the user will have to spend more time or judgment in thinking about how do you want to use that quote unquote answer, and how do you go back and verify or fill in the gaps where things have missed, or maybe there are biases. So that means that we have to understand how that answers are generated in many ways. So remember that answers may not cover they're not always the actual comprehensive answers. There may be gaps, there may be things that we need to verify, and so we need to understand that part. If you follow how these generative AI models are developed, you probably know that a lot of these AI companies kind of go onto the open web and get information from anywhere they can find information, data, and then use that to train the AI models. But now I think they have probably scraped the entire open web. So, but there are still a lot of information and data that are not being used to train, and these are owned by a lot of the content owners, like publishers, newspapers, media companies. So there are a lot of new agreements and that these companies are licensing their content to AI companies for them to use for their training purposes or other purposes, so that these AI models would become even more have more data basically. And there are a lot of articles that talk about different companies, striking these deals with them. But even that, there are also they still want as much data as possible. So the next one, the next step after these working with these publishers is that they are starting to approach places where may not be as obvious. For example, archives, where there are a lot of unique, unpublished collections that may be very valuable for training AI. And libraries are already at the table. It is happening. Maybe a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago, OpenAI have have straight partnership with universities. For example, Oxford University, to basically have a initiative with the entire university, and the library there is also part of it. And they have funded the library to digitize a lot of their unique materials. And same thing with Boston Public Library, the same kind of initiative with OpenAI to digitize a lot of their historical documents, which is fantastic. Both of these is that you make a lot of unavailable materials now accessible, available for the public, which is fantastic, right? But at the same time, remember the point I made earlier about how the answers are generated, right? So if we share or give AI models some of these data or information from these data basically, or documents that were unique. How do we make sure that they are verifiable? How can we make sure that they are presented in an accurate way, or in a way that that could be traceable back to the original source? That is the main question. And a lot of our donors have noticed that, right? So multiple ARL, those large research libraries, have reported that donors are now requesting clauses in gift agreements to guarantee that their materials will not be used for AI training. Or at least they start asking questions on how are you going to use my materials with AI? And but the thing is, a lot of the donors and even our own staff may not be as knowledgeable as we would like about AI. So with that is that we are, trying to answer these questions from scratch. We don't have a framework. We don't have shared standards or language. So it becomes messy. At the same time, we want to also educate people who are working with us, our donors, on what AI training is, what does it mean for their materials being used or not used with AI, so that they can make informed decisions. Because once, if we're not clear about that, once we sign that deed of gift, it's kind of permanent unless we change it in some ways. We find ways to change that, it becomes permanent, and there are a lot of things that would dictate how that material is going to be assessed or be used. So that means we really need to start thinking about this, so that we have a clear understanding of it, and we can communicate that to the donors, to people who want us to steward their material, so they understand it, so that they can make the informed decisions on how they want it to be. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm like, whether I'm anti-AI, or I'm just I don't want us to use AI for archival materials or unique materials. In fact, I think AI will be very good, especially in the long term, for a lot of the work we do for making our materials be accessible and be used in a productive way for a lot of people. It's just that right now it's just a very let's just say, I use the word chaotic, but because things are changing, and nobody has like a handle on it yet. But we want to be engaged with it. I want our staff to be engaged with it, so that we can learn more about it, and also figure out how we can use it in a way that can help us with our mission. For example, in my library, we recently had I would say a staff engagement event with AI called the Olympics, OLLM picks, which is, I think, a fun play of the word. Basically, is that we get all staff to work in teams of 4, working with original special collections documents, and then use 4 kind of commercially available AI models, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, to test on the transcription capabilities on these historical materials. And then it was a fun day, and people try it out, and then they come to learn more about how these AI models performed, how they compare to their own kind of human abilities, and also thinking about how they can apply that to their work, or not apply to their work, in what ways. But one hard rule, even without me telling them, is that they basically say we don't allow these AI services from ingesting these documents or chats into their training data. So in many ways, a lot of people have instinctively feel like, before we understand what that means, we are very careful about how data are being used for training purposes. And I'll explain why that is. Here, before we go further, is another question for you. As far as you know, has your institution received a request involving AI and your collections? Be yes, directly from AI company, or yes, through a vendor contract or renew clause. It could be one or the other. You pick one, or not yet, you don't know, or not sure, you don't know. I'll give you a second to choose that. Hey, now this is interesting. So 5%. So some, like I was put the two yeses together, about 16% of you have actually gotten some requests for your materials. And some of you don't know, some of you say no, but this is significant. You know, 27 out of 176 of you saying that, you have gotten requests. So we do need to think about how we want to deal with these requests because it is a brand new thing. There really isn't hasn't been a standard set yet, right? Okay. So the second part of the question is when an AI company asks you or any kind of vendor asks you to train on your collection, what do you say? I say that training is a disposition decision, not an access decision. So simple definitions. Access is granting permission to use the materials by whom, how, and on what terms. You stay in charge. Wherever you're allowed today, you can stop tomorrow. You can stop the access. But disposition is deciding what becomes of the materials. So that is the thing that will go into the deed of gift, basically, right? Once made, you usually cannot take it back on your own. You need to really work with um, the donors, for example, the community who gave you the materials to change any of that. So, and I'll say training is the disposition decision, whether we will want to allow that. So, because of this thing called irreversibility. Once trained, it's there. You cannot change it. You cannot take it back. Absorption. Source materials are, if you understand the AI training process, just in the very basic terms, is that source materials are baked, quote unquote, into the model weight, not stored alongside them. Once it's in there, it's almost like if you use baking a cake as a analogy, it's like putting sugar, flour, eggs in that. Once they're in there, it's part of the cake. You cannot take out the egg again. You can take out the sugar again. Right? It's a similar thing. No isolation. Once training is complete, isolating the influence of a specific item is usually impossible. And also, no removal. You cannot unlearn the data on demand, and you cannot verify, complete removal. So once trained, it's very hard to either stop it, to change it. So that means making this decision, it's almost like final. So you want to be very careful about making that decisions. One train, the control is lost. We cannot unbake the cake. That's why it's a disposition decision, and we need to think of it that way. Think about um, how AI works now. Even if AI gives you the correct answer, the accurate answer, if all the entire world's knowledge is baked into an AI model and gives you even correct answer, but without the ability to trace it back to the original, which is a problem right now, then how do we even, first of all, know whether that's true? And also, that would become a world without origin, right? So even the correct answer cannot be traced back to, if all the world's knowledge worked that way, nothing can be verified against the record it came from. But the provenance is knowledge, paper trail, proof of where it came from. And with AI training, current technology, I'm always preface this, but current AI training technology, training keeps knowledge, but burns the trail. And that trail is how knowledge stays accountable. This is a serious thing for us, for our stewardship, and for the people who use the materials for serious work. And not even serious, everyday usage is it requires that kind of accountability. So I believe that it is our responsibility to to make sure that that we are accountable. And also the obligation too. I mean, we are stewards of these materials. We don't not necessarily own them. So archives own materials in trust with donors, records creators, and communities of origin. And there are different standards, like Society of American Archivists standard as a core values explicitly identify donor contracts and cultural protections as legitimate basis for access restrictions. Materials are entrusted to archivists, not owned outright. Code of ethics mandating the culturally sensitive materials designated by communities should not be disseminated without express permission, right? So disposition again. And the conclusion is applying governance to AI is not a departure from our library values. It is I would say, a direct enforcement of existing use-based access conditions in a new technical environment. So bulk ingestion, the AI training, I would say breaches community governance in a permanent way. There are, I would use the care principles. Indigenous communities retain governance rights over their own records independently of institutional ownership or copyright, right? So you have community trust leading to archival stewardship, leading to institutional access and back to trust. And I think right now, with bulk AI ingestion, that cuts across that loop. So the cost is, I would say, could be a breach of the custodial relationship, and it's permanent. But there are different kinds of AI uses of our materials. For example, I would generally say if it is a retrieval or control models, systems that look at data without absorbing it, or source items remain stored and controlled by the archives and can be removed. For example, RAG, you probably have heard of that term before. We just, a AI model or chatbot goes to a database to grab materials from that without ingesting it. That's fine. Generally, is a default. It is permitted default. What we try to be very careful about is the general purpose training system that absorb knowledge in the model weights. Reversal is not realistic at this point. Data is widely redistributed. For example, training the foundation models, all the big ones that you have heard of, GPT, Claude, and those. So right now, as far as we know, until they can kind of show that it can match certain criteria, that's the default. They're saying, well, let's think deeper about that and generally say no to it first before moving. But also, even with training, that's not just one thing. There are different categories, like indexing or retrieval, like AI looking up things in your collection, but don't really kind of absorb them. That's kind of lower risk. So we can kind of, look at that in that way. And fine tuning, for example, the AI has already been trained, and now it just studies a curated batch of your materials to get better at a specific skill set. That's kind of medium, highish, a risk. So want to think about that. And then evaluation benchmarking. Your materials are basically used as a test, not a lesson, right? It checks how well its AI reads or describes your document. So that's variable. But the high risk ones are the general model training, like I mentioned earlier, it absorbs into his weight. So when we meet with whether it's vendors, companies, or even researchers, we say, hey, specify the category of use so that we can maintain certain boundaries. So even if you want to say, hey, I'm okay with sharing my materials for AI training or any kind of AI use, you may want to think about the economics aspect of it too. The asset is that we hold these kind of last scarce asset in the AI training landscape. They're undigitized, contextualized primary sources. A lot of the times, the deal is they say we pay you to digitize. Fantastic. We want to digitize more materials, but in return, you give up the training, or you give them the training rights of it. I would say when you look at those agreements, separate those two things. Digitization is digitization. I think training is just training, because digitization is a one-time payment, is one-time fee, but training is a compounding um, asset basically. And so even from an economics perspective, even if you want to refine collections that you're okay with using AI for training purposes, think about it though, because all these are new, right? So nobody has developed really a playbook for it. So we want to point these things out for consideration. So third, uh, I kept mentioning there's no playbook. Well, there is actually one. We developed one at University of Virginia. We call it the UVA Archival AI Protocol, which was released in the spring this year. So one core rule is irreversible models, like what I mentioned, like at this point with current technology, general training is that do not get access unless item level provenance and meaningful attribution can be demonstrated in practice, and the archival organization retains contractually enforceable control to stop further use. And I'll just say plainly at this point, for a lot of these large language model training, that's not really possible. But it is possible some, for example, for researchers using certain ways of doing things and agreeing to certain conditions. I think those are actually possible. But anyways, there are three pillars. Pillar one is provenance and attribution. If the AI cannot cite its source, it cannot use the archive or the collections. Pillar two, donor and community obligations. Legal rights are the floor, not the ceiling. We are definitely we have responsibilities to the donors and the community who have entrusted us with their materials. And thirdly, institutional control. We retain the right to stop, the materials being distributed. Like I said earlier, there are certain principles that we need to adhere to, basically, based on our stewardship. So pillar one, provenance and attribution, archival source linked to a process and output with citation, that's the ideal, right? We want traceability. System must record which collections are used. Linking outputs must link back to specific archival holdings. Credit, mandatory credit to donors, creators, community. So we want a chain of custody extended into the machine. Even though current technology really doesn't really do that, but this could be the catalyst to show that it is important, and we are attracting interest from researchers wanting to do research in this area. So I'm hopeful that at some point that AI can do that, but until then, I just want us to be very careful. Pillar two is donor, community, and ethical obligations. We honor commitments made in deeds of gift and deposit agreements. AI users will not proceed if they violate these deed of gifts, terms of donor correspondence, conflict with cultural protocols and community norms, or breach privacy expectations, or place vulnerable individuals at risk. So consent first. So that means we need to be very careful in reviewing these deeds of gifts when we consider any kind of AI, whether it's AI use, AI training of their materials or creating new ones. So the policies is where obligations are unclear, we decline AI use rather than risk trust at this point. Thirdly, institutional control, the right to stop. We should retain the ability to pull the plug. The right to cease is that the organization can require partners to stop ingesting content, remove archives, or retrieval indexes. For the big models, probably not possible at this point, but like I said, with certain researchers, with certain research projects, that's actually possible. And the right to decommission for narrow models trained mainly on archival collections will require the right to destroy the model if permission is withdrawn. Same thing with certain users, not I almost want to say blanket, that's not possible right now. There are certain options. So we want to control that survives the signature, contractually enforceable but not symbolic. So if you look at the framework, there are 4 steps for every request. Rights and ethics check, deeds of guilt, cultural protocols, privacy. So any kind of violation, we'll decline it. Identify the use type, whether it's, like I mentioned, what kind of training is it, right? Retrieval, fine-tuning, evaluation, general training. So we require the requester, not just vendor, it could be anybody, to specify. And apply the control test. Retrieval, can we shut it down? Do outputs link back? Then we proceed with control. Broad training, the presumption against approval, unless there is a kind of narrow model with item level provenance or if it satisfies our conditions. And then final control check, cease commission rights in the agreement and contract, and then we proceed with caution. So in action is that if you look at an example, a vendor, the clause may be, they put in a clause in the agreement, vendor may use license and digitized content to develop and improve machine learning models. Do we want to say yes or no to that? So that's the rights and ethics checks. The digitized collections include donor restricted materials. Well, we'll proceed with caution. Identify what does improved models mean. Does it mean training or retrieval? Does it name a category? So we want to heighten that scrutiny. And then control test. Is there a removal right? Any item level provenance? So if not, then we may not want to say yes to that. So if that's the case, then we strike or narrow the clause and offer retrieval-based access for provenance instead. So we basically, what I'm saying is that we want to be clear, very clear on what we want, so that when get approached, when get proposed, we know what to say. So these are kind of the in the protocol we share some of these kind of minimum provenance standard. You have a complete citation like that. If the AI cannot do this, we don't want to say yes to it. Or it has to respond something like insufficient evidence in the retrieval archival sources to answer, at least acknowledge that, right? Okay, final poll question. Does your institution have a written policy or framework for AI training requests? Yes, in development, no, or you don't know. All right, so this is interesting. You have 2% yes. Oh, it's good that 17% of you are in development and many of you don't have one yet. So, which is kind of expected, actually. I'm very impressed with the 2%. So no institution knows what AI companies are asking across the field, but together we can share information. We know, so we don't have to make decisions in isolation. Why? But why do it together, right? Because a lot of the times we are asked when companies approach us, they often ask us to sign non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, that prevent institutions from sharing what's been discussed. And that is that deep asymmetry is an understanding. So without shared definitions, each institution evaluates requests alone in the vocabulary that the vendor chose. So I want to build a group, a coalition in some ways to build shared practice. So still, each institution can decide independently and decide well, but we share. We share definitions, we share standards, we share category level visibility. Now, what we don't share is we don't share prices, terms, or decisions. Every institution decides alone. I just want this for us to develop a standard. So when we in each individual institution look at these, we have in a way, a framework, a standard, as a baseline to think about these without starting from scratch for every single institution. So I put out a statement of shared practice. It started out at a ARL peer-to-peer session with about 50 different institutions attending. This is not the UVA Archival Protocol. It's I would say a soft interpretation of it. So 6 voluntary commitments, a shared standard, a community of practice. The one is we set a shared standards, classify every request by category. We separate digitization funding from AI training rights. What I mentioned earlier, they're 2 separate things. Don't conflate the two into one thing. We require provenance, transparency, and removability. So that is that interpretation of the UVA Archival AI Protocol when we get approached by AI training requests. We prefer retrieval-based approaches because at this point, the technologies is that is a little bit is safer and reversible. So, but we apply heightened scrutiny to broad training requests because at this point, these are not reversible. And then we also share knowledge or information through a confidential ledger. The ledger is basically people for the group, for the institution in this group to contribute category level record of AI training requests, what institutions are receiving, on what terms, what they're asking for. We're not trying to, share, any kind of financial details or anything like that. No, but we want to kind of understand what we are being asked about, so that we have a better understanding and also a better way to think about how we want to make these decisions. So the scope, what the statement is that it's not a moratorium. It establishes a floor for responsible practice, not a ceiling. It favors AI approaches that preserve traceability. It's not boycott, right? It's not an agreement to refuse any party or set prices or anything. Each institution retains full independent authority over every decision. It's definitely not a legal contract. It's more of a professional commitment covering new requests only. Mostly special collections archives, not published works, not library works, archival materials, new undigitized materials, and and any kind of institutions can withdraw anytime. It's only for 12 months. We started in April, so this statement will be reviewed by next February, and to see how we want to modify it, if we even want to modify it or keep it going. It expires unless it's affirmatively renewed. The whole point of this is that we are getting these requests, and a lot of us have to make decisions under time pressure without having fully thought about the whole thing. This whole statement is basically a 12-month pause to say, let's take about 12 months, a year, to think about it collectively, to think about it together as a field, so that we can make informed decisions moving forward. That's what that really is. And hopefully, we can get different perspectives, and instead of just, me and UVA coming out with a playbook, we want people from different areas developing different ideas to see how, as a field, how we can move forward. So the group has 12 founding institutions. We launched a statement on April 3rd, and since then is July. We have 20 plus signatories, so part of that group. You can see the founding cohort there. And also, we're getting liberal arts colleges to sign. We get a University of Liège from the first European institution. So the endorsement only requires the deans or the director's signature. And it's open to any kind of memory institution. the group meet every about 6 weeks. We have a Zoom call, whoever can attend, and we talk about approaches. People, we're getting requests, specific questions, topic people are interested in, and so it's a community of practice. We are generating a lot of ideas and kind of seeing a lot of not necessarily just concerns, but a lot of areas that we should be discussing as a field. So I'm loving it, and the next meeting will be on August 4th, and we just based on all these discussions, we have developed that ledger that people are starting to populate basically, and a lot of people are getting approaches. So I gave you three kind of things to leave with. So hopefully Monday morning or next week you have you get your institution to sign the statement of share practice, your dean or director signs, but you can start the conversation if you're not in that position. You can start looking at your active vendor contracts, search for AI, machine learning, improved services clauses, and see whether you are getting anything from them, and decide who receive AI requests as your institution and where they go next. Most institutions have never named that person. So these are the links. I'll put them in the chat, by the way, and you can get the documents and look at them. These are all free to use, free to adopt the AI protocol. There are a lot. There's an implementation kit as well. I've written an essay called Memory Without Origin, which is the full rationale of why developing the protocol, and then the statement of shared practice. You can see the full text of it, FAQ, and there's an endorsement form. And if you're on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me there. Follow me there, connect with me there. I share a lot there, and I also get a lot of great information on AI and libraries and education there as well. So let me just move things around, put the links in the chat, and then we can open up for Q&A.
All right. Well, I'll speak for everyone and say thank you so much for the informative presentation. There's a lot of material covered, and we have a lot of questions in the Q&A. So let's just go ahead and get into them. So the first question comes from James. How do institutions opt out of AI ingesting when using it for transcription and so forth? Is there a reliable mechanism?
So it depends on the tool. For example, all the commercial ones that I mentioned that we use in our staff engagement event, GPT, Claude, all of them. For the paid version, there is an option to turn off the training. So basically, they will not use your uploaded information for training purposes. And obviously, if you use more specific tools that gotta be, different features. If not, you should be asking the vendor about that. And ask them with all these, the different categories of training or improving services that I mentioned, so that you know exactly what they're using it for. If they cannot answer you, that tells you something as well.
Absolutely. All right. This question comes from Stacy. Regarding interacting with donor agreements, it does not seem like LLM use of online materials without author consent is settled under copyright law. It's still working through the court process. As information professionals, do you think librarians have a responsibility to present this nuance to those who place their materials with us? In other words, we can't act as though their material are or are not protected from LLM scraping via law yet. How do we proceed ethically?
No, this is a question that honestly is, first of all, I would have to preface, I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot answer the copyright law part. But you are right, it is still going through it. I don't think there is an answer at this point. And you're also right that if we put things online, what's to stop, different companies from just using it to ingest into the AI models. I think we need to be honest with our donors and say that it is a possibility. A
Mhm.
lot of companies, including a lot of organizations, including libraries and archives, are working very hard to stop these bots crawling our materials, because we have obviously everybody have seen the data showing that a lot of bots are crawling repositories and other things. So how do we um, um, minimize that, stop that? There isn't an answer even at this point. And there may never be an answer because it's both sides trying to to beat each other. So you're right that we need to be honest about that, and this is up to the donors to make their decision based on our us being very candid with them to say this is the reality at this point. How do you want us to steward your materials?
Mhm.
It's their decisions ultimately.
Right. All right. This question comes from Marta. Can you give an example where AI companies have worked correctly with with the provenance issue?
I think there are a lot of researchers are working on it, and I think they do realize that it is a important thing for people to trust the output. You can see that, let's say Google or any of these AI models are trying to provide links to support the answers that they give you. Let's say Google, the AI overview up there, they will provide links to the resources that are supposedly that they use to generate that answer. But there are also a lot of studies showing that those are not really aligned. A lot of the times they're not quite aligned. That we're not quite sure how these answers are developed in what way. So that remains to be seen. But the good thing is, I think they realize that it is important to a lot of people that they need to be able to show the work in some ways, and I do think that they will be working on it now. Um, how long would that take? We don't know. And how, so that means that during this period, for us as information professionals, we also need to be engaged with it so
Mhm.
that we can share with our users the reality of it and how we can help them actually verify without just 100% relying on these AI answers or links at this point.
All right. The next two questions are about trust and misuse. We'll take them one at a time. The
Mhm.
first one comes from Rachel. How can we make sure historical writing is presented as such by AI? For instance, 18th century ideas of biology, which are historically interesting but scientifically superseded.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
That's more than just, what we talked about here, but I'll try to kind of, speculate a little bit. This, I'm not an expert in this area, but I do think it's just like, okay, we have um there are a lot of researchers trying to, for example, build a chatbot that using only, let's say, Thomas Jefferson's writing and Thomas Jefferson's, speeches and all of that, and they create Thomas Jefferson bot. Like we're at UVA, of course, we want to do that. But at the same time, like you said, the writing or the saying and beliefs at that time is quite different from today. So how do we, make sure that people, the users reading it can still get what they need? Um, Not quite sure. That may need to be two separate. That's just me guessing. Two separate kind of models. One is that so-called historically accurate writing saying, and then another kind of like the today's kind of interpretation or today's kind of explanation of these things.
Mm.
I That's just me guessing. So
Yeah,
I'd love
I'm
to hear your thought, Rachel's your thoughts on how, we can kind of make this work. I think that could be a quite interesting project to do.
right, because it's easy to see how it could become a real problem having in these
Yeah.
archival materials.
Right, right.
Uh, Perhaps Sarah here, I'm gonna skip to their question. Perhaps an oblique answer, a way out of this. They ask, is it not possible to ask AI to treat objects in citations as artifacts that are not to be altered or aggregated? Would this type of function not correct the whole problem of copyrights and citations?
So it depends on the training process. Because right now, the general foundational AI model training is that they're not really remembering stuff. They're not memorizing this, even though that could happen.
Mhm.
So all these are going in there, and then they have, and use the analogy, they're all mixed in together. So in a way that with current technology, that's not quite possible in that way. But but then again, I'm not a computer scientist. I don't know the most, up-to-date research, although I try to keep up in that people are working on this. So I would not try to venture into the very technical part of it at this point, but I know people are definitely working on this, but in what way, I'm not quite sure.
Mhm. All right. This question comes from Anthony. Can you trust companies not to misuse the information?
So this I'm not quite sure. It depends on the company.
Mhm.
It depends on the track record. It depends on, and I know that they know trust is going to be such an important thing for their business models,
Right.
right? So I would hope that they would work hard on this because at this point, I think there are a lot of mistrust, or people are not really trusting a lot of these the really big ones, big companies. So I hope they will work on it and improve it.
Mhm. All right. There's a few questions here about the community of practice, so maybe we can just
Oh,
kind of run
yeah.
through them quickly here at the end because I think there's a lot of excitement. Um, is there a cost for joining the coalition?
No, no, no cost.
All right. Is this community of practice something that local history community collection administrators could join, or is there a similar community that's more appropriate for them?
So I would say that I mentioned memory institutions. Basically, if you have some collections
Hmm.
that are just similar to what I mentioned, that you have some responsibility to your people who give you the collections, then you join. But you can join and give your perspective, especially if you have a almost expectations, or you think that somebody, either researchers or a vendor or AI company, may come to you and say, "Hey, can we use your materials for these kind of things?" And you would like to have a group of people to kind of to learn from or learn with, then I would say, yeah, we'll be happy for you to join.
All right. And then just to clarify then public libraries, historical societies, national libraries.
Yeah. If you have, yeah, I would imagine they all have these kind of materials and these kind of almost like expectations.
All right. Well, that sounds great. We're going to go ahead and wind things down now. Thank you so much for getting to so many questions, Leo, and for taking the time to speak for us today, or speak with us today. Thank you to our attendees for your engagement and for all of your questions and comments. It was really great to read them. I'd like to remind our viewers that we did record today's program, so please be on the lookout for an email from Choice with a link to the recording as well as today's slides. Also, if you have a few minutes after the presentation to fill out a brief survey, we would really appreciate it. We do take it very seriously. Thanks again for all of you out there for joining us today. We hope you found the session informative and engaging, and we hope to see you soon on another webinar. Take care, everyone.